Currently, about 340,000 Australians are receiving active in-home care, and around 35 to 40,000 have entered under this new supported home pricing regime. There's about 100,000 people on the waiting list, so that's 100,000 people that will come in under this new pricing regime. And in July 2027, about 850,000 Commonwealth Home Support Program participants will be transitioning into the system. This puts the number of people that will be in the supported home system and involved in this pricing regime at north of 1 million people. So it's really important to understand exactly how this works. And it's really difficult. The most important starting point is the profile of the person who has the supported home package. It's their financial, residential and relationship status that is going to impact how they're assessed to contribute. What's really interesting about the packages for supported home is that there's no means testing in terms of the scale of the amount of money. There's means testing in terms of how people contribute to certain types of care. I guess one way I'd look at it is if the legislation was a person, you'd be saying for personal care and nursing care, out of the package, you're going to be able to use all of that money to fund for that and you don't have to co-contribute at all. For things like social outings, this sort of thing, you're going to put in some money depending on your ability to contribute. And for things like cleaning the house, help around the garden, you're going to have to make a larger co-contribution if you can afford it. It's these different lanes that make people's experience in the supported home system different and unique to them. So that's why it's really useful to understand your profile and then to clarify how that impacts your supported home journey. This means newspaper articles talking generally are not going to necessarily be appropriate to you. This means the experience of your neighbour or your friend can be different to you. It's a very customised story, and the Later Life app is about focusing your experience or journey in supported home. So these are the published reports that I think can give people a useful insight as part of the supported home journey. First of all, the government publishes wait times. These wait times are based on area, so I can map the wait time to the postcode that you've got in the system. It's a point in time data, and from what I understand, these wait times are getting shorter, but it's useful in the process. The government publishes your supported home package amounts as quarters or daily amounts. I think there's scope to view that probably week by week. I think we think in terms of schedules in a weekly basis. And I think it's relevant for the dailiness of care to take into account weekends where there's higher rates. The government publishes average prices for supported home. I think this is a really useful starting point. The government also insists that all providers publish their rates on their website. And I think this is really useful because you could compare that to the averages. The scope of what is covered by the types of care is important to understand also. There's been a lot of confusion about what cleaning means, for example, or help around the garden or personal care. The government has very clear guidelines as to what is scoped in and scoped out. And once again, that's in another part of the website. And I think that's really useful to bring in and make it easier for people to find. So what we have is a collection of government resources mapped to the user and their profile based on where they live, based on their financial, personal and housing situation and how that feeds into means testing. And it's an evolving process of trying to make it better for people to anticipate their supported home journey. What's really important is knowing exactly how far a package can go, and with that in mind, perhaps augmenting it with private care, because the cost of the same care delivered through a package is going to be different to how it's delivered privately. And it's going to be very hard for you to get a sense of that until you're well and truly into the process. The cost of services via the supported home program have a lot of other costs built in, and you have the choice between self-managing and having it managed by a third party. And then there is a choice between having private services or getting them through a package. And what you end up with is this incredibly complex administration pathway before we get to the qualitative issues around the delivery of care. My sole focus here is just making it easier. And I'm just going to walk you through what I've got so far. Now, this is a work in progress. I love feedback. I'd love people to say this is really working for me or this isn't working for me. So this is Margaret, right? And we have a whole lot of these cameos that you can access via the Later Life Advice website. So quite simply, you go to the website and there'll be a number of different scenarios. You click on them and they come through to a fully working version of the app with the explanation. Of course, the whole point of the app is to have a very customized set of numbers that are based on your situation or your mum's situation. So, you know, the whole idea is to avoid those situations where you're reading about someone else and how they went through with the rules and how it might impact you, and you're thinking, am I that person? This is the chance to put your mum at the very center of the situation. Her profile has enough information to show you where the path will most likely go. So here's an example. We're talking about Margaret. In this case, she is what you call a self-funded retiree. She's got enough assets that she doesn't qualify for a Centrelink age pension. She would qualify for a Commonwealth Seniors Health Card. She is at the point where she is considering some support at home. And the process of this, of course, is to register with My Aged Care and request an assessment. The assessments take time. And then as Margaret's supporter, you're probably thinking, you know, what next? Margaret might already have some help at home with some cleaning and some help around the garden, and she's eligible for a home care package. What happens next? So when we look at how Margaret is assessed based on her financial profile, it's really quite complicated to start with, but consider that there's basically, I would call, three lanes of types of care. There is the clinical care and personal care from the 1st of October. And these are, you know, for example, a nurse or a personal carer to help with showering and medication, etc. These guys are 100% supported from the package. So when the government allocates Margaret some money, she can pay for these services out of the package. In terms of other independents, you know, like transport or social support, there's a co-contribution system, and in this case, Margaret is fully assessed to pay 50% of those costs. And for everyday living, which, you know, you might, as an example, include, you know, house cleaning and gardening, she needs to assess she needs to contribute 80%, right? So the first stage is understanding that the rate of contribution that Margaret needs to make is based on her financial situation, and because she is at the maximum end of the means testing, she will have to make large co-contributions to things like gardening and house cleaning. Okay, so we kind of know that, but what does it actually mean? So a few things here. Margaret's in northern Sydney, and we're able to map the wait time from a government report, that being the wait times report that comes out, I think it's 28 days after the end of each quarter. Look, this is a report that is, I would say, not user-friendly. It's a jargon-heavy government report, but within the report is very important waiting time information that is going to be really useful for Margaret, whoever's supporting Margaret, to try to get some sense of how long it's going to take for the package, once she's assessed as being eligible for it, to be delivered. Now, this is point in time number. Apparently these numbers are improving significantly, but there's government data there, so why not use it? Okay, so the next thing you will notice is you just want to know is how much is the package worth? Well, the actual supported home costs and contributions is in this other report, Aged Care Subsidies and Supplements Supported Home, and it's also on the My Aged Care website. But in this case, it's told as a daily amount. Like what does a daily amount mean? On the My Aged Care website, I think we can find quarterly amounts. I'm just going to find that. The fact that the fact that it's just so hard to find exactly how much these things cost. Where is it? Ongoing service class. Here it is. Okay, so buried deep on the My Aged Care website is actually the amount of the classification. So if Margaret has a level 4 package, she's got a quarterly budget of $7,617.13. To my mind, seeing this budget in a quarterly number or a daily number is really hard. Like, we think in terms of weeks. Well, I do, and that's kind of one of the main reasons I've built the website in this way. For a level 4 package, it's $7,617. You take off 10% management fee, right? And it leaves with $526 a week. Okay, so we know for the level 4 package, Margaret's got $526 to help her with her care needs. So how far does that actually go? Well, we do have the government has a listing of indicative supported home prices, right? So this is an average report, came out in May this year. It will continue to be reported. Once again, these numbers sit in this report. What I've done is I've included them in the app in a far more sensible way, just to sort of summarize it down and make some effort to present it a bit better. You can see, according to the price guide, that the registered nurse cost is between $160 and $195, average price of $180. Okay, so I would say the most common types of care in each category. So in the care and personal support would be a registered nurse and a personal care provider to help with showering and medications. In other independent support services, a social support would be the most common in everyday living. Gardening and house cleaning. They're your base numbers. That's your kind of starting point. So if you're a Margaret supporter, you're saying you've got $526 a week to spend. How far would that go? Well, at the guide price of $180 an hour, that's about 3 hours of a nurse present per week. Now, you might not be able to get a nurse for 2.9 hours. They probably normally come in 2-hour blocks. Or about 4.5 hours of personal care. So if Margaret needs help with showering, for example, that's fully funded out of the package. And it's very important to note that the level 4 package is not means tested in itself, right? So Margaret is a self-funded retiree or someone on a maximum rate pension gets the same amount of funding. It's just the way they allocate the funding varies. So for Margaret, for social support, she has to pay half, right? So she could get 9.5 hours a week, but she's putting in $56 an hour personally, right? And then for everyday living, if she wanted to pay for a gardener or a cleaner out of the package, she has to pay 80%. So in this case, the national average cost of house cleaning is $110 an hour. If she's contributing 80%, she's paying $88 an hour for house cleaning using her package. So what this says to you is that because the cost of house cleaning is high via a package because it has to come through her provider, who load on to the costs a bunch of other administration and overheads, it might be better value for Margaret just to continue going with an existing house cleaning setup that she has, and maybe to focus focus using the package for personal care if she needs that. So you can start to see this kind of tension between what things cost via a package, how much of your package can be allocated to that, and the way you co-contribute, that you're starting to get a complicated system. Okay, so we're starting to get a sense now, Margaret's level 4 package, what it might buy based on national averages. And we're getting a bit closer to understanding how it's going to work for Margaret. However, national averages might not apply to Margaret. I just was reading today that Hammond Care, for example, in the Sydney, New South Wales area, have bought another operator. They're about to become one of the largest. Really good opportunity to look at their supported home prices, and we can see they have to publish their prices, which is government rules. So anyone who's providing you with supported home service, you can look at their prices, and in their case, we had national average prices before. This is looking at Sydney area. Probably the prices are higher. A registered nurse during regular hours is $204, when the average rate we're looking was $180, and the numbers here that you're actually starting to see when the rubber hits the road are a lot higher. So in this case, Hammond Care have got independent services here at an hourly rate of $126. At the time of preparing this video, personal care still has a co-contribution amount, but it's changing lanes into the fully funded rate. So if for Margaret, if she's looking at Hammond Care and it's $126 for personal care, we can adjust the number here, and so she can work out that for personal care, she could probably get about 4 hours a week using a package. So if she had a level 4 package and she wanted help with showering and that sort of thing, you would probably say that's about two days a week with 2 hours care. Okay, so you can start to see it taking shape if you are planning for Margaret's care and you thought a package was going to deliver quite a total and comprehensive amount of care, and then you start to say, well, actually it's 2 days, most likely 2 hour blocks. That's what it delivers. To me, that's the kind of clarity that is going to help people. Is going to help people make better plans. A few other things in here that I think is really important is what's called the service lists and inclusions. If you go to the Facebook forums and things like that, people might not be clear on what, say, house cleaning. They might think it might need to be to a certain standard when really domestic assistance in scope is basically essential light cleaning. They're not going to expect steam clean carpets, for example. I think home maintenance and repairs is really interesting as well. Like gardening, it's basically to make things safe. You're not getting tree removal and professional landscaping. Okay, so it's really clear in the government rules. I don't think it's that clear for people to find. They say, well, I'm getting a gardening service through my package, and they might have certain expectations. The scope is really clearly defined, but I just don't think it's that easy to find. So that's a feature. I've got basically the common questions. I've basically reproduced all that data basically on the app. And remember, this is in the palm of your hand. It formats very nicely on a desktop, obviously, but this is in the palm of your hand, easy to look up, making that process just a lot easier. I've got links here to all the pages that I've already shown you, which are basically re-summarized in the app. We've got an explainer, which is obviously going to be quite useful. And I'm not going to go into restorative care and end of life pathway, but this is all covered in the app. Works really well. And finally, this is really important. It's important to me as a financial analyst to show to people that based on their profile, their contribution calculation is already mapped out. Okay, so Margaret's a self-funded retiree. She's approaching a stage of life where she needs care. Her financial situation is not going to change that much. You know, it's so she's kind of predestined. And if we look over to the residential aged care step, so if Margaret's home care needs are starting to ratchet up, she's getting as much support at home, that's great. It would be worthwhile looking over the fence potentially as a supporter of Margaret to say, well, what could happen if Margaret moves into residential aged care? And once again, it comes back to this idea of a profile. Her journey is kind of written already. She's got a home. She's got significant assets. She'll probably have enough assets. Well, she could have enough assets to pay a RAD, and it might take pressure off the sale of the home. But you know, anyone who's been working in this game a long time understands that it's really normally just a handful of data points, and you can get a sense of where this is going. What I've been able to do in the app is be laser precise with this, in that using logic allows the user to know what's coming up. Okay, let's look at someone else. Robert, he's got a $1.5 million home in Tasmania. He's our friend from Tasmania. 300,000 in super and about 50,000 in cash. He's a part pensioner. He gets about 93% of the maximum pension rate. So for Rob, we can be very clear on how much pension he's eligible for. We've mapped out all his concessions, understand his Medicare and PBS access. We can help him with the exact amount of income that he can get before he starts losing 50 cents of age pension for every extra dollar he earns. How much he can borrow under the home equity access scheme should he need to top up his regular cash flow. The maths that of downsizing for him, say if he downsized to a retirement village and freed up a bunch of cash, how that might change his pension eligibility. And say Robert is at the stage where he's looking at supported home. He's also been assessed for a level 4 package. In Tasmania, where he's from, the wait time is 304 days. Once again, that is just a government number at a point in time. But I think for whoever's supporting Robert, it would be fair to say that makes clear that he can wait. If he gets his package, expect to wait up to 300 days. He can get a sense of that from My Aged Care. They'll tell him what the waiting times look like. You can see that the proportion of his contribution to care is very specific. It's calculated. It's a calculated number. It's not just if you're a non-pensioner, pensioner, or self-funded retiree. It is a calculation. And for part pensioners, it's not clear. And the app does the maths. Okay, so for him, level 4 package, $526. He's got a different equation in that if he gets a gardener at $118 an hour, his contribution is $24, right? So even though a gardener through his package might be much higher than the gardener, in the street or whatever, or in his local suburb, he might choose to use his package to fund gardening, and his out-of-pocket is very different from Margaret before, who was assessed to pay 80% of the cost. So you can start to see we've got very specific pricing based on the individual. It's literally customized pricing. And because it's customized, anything generic's just not going to cut it. You have the opportunity to know exactly how Robert's package is going to work in terms of the different services he might need, and you can make better plans. So that's the supported home story. Quickly looking over the fence to residential aged care, Rob would have to pay a RAD. He's got $300,000 in savings and the home. So if he moved to a residential aged care and the RADs were very high in his area, he would have to, or whoever's supporting him, would have to look very carefully at the funding position there. It's also, we make it very easy to help him find where there are fundable accommodation deposits might be in his area. You can put in your postcode and go to My Aged Care and start hunting around there. So that's the story of the app so far. Constantly working on it, trying to improve it. The supported home story, I think, is like the sleeping giant here. There's not a lot of people subject to the pricing system now, 30 or 40,000. There's 100,000 on the waiting list about to come in. And by next year, there's another 850,000 or so will be transitioning over. We are all going to have to know how the supported home pricing works. And it's going to just create fear until you can have a customized way of anticipating how it's going to work, particularly when it comes to mum needs care. There's a 300-day waiting period for the package. You can see that the package is only going to deliver a certain amount of care. Then you might just start using private carers. It's basically a whole administration pathway that's probably going to be beyond most older Australians, but for those supporting them, it is the necessary complexity that you're going to have to address, and this app helps with that.